And I'm starting to see a lot of thought leaders post about this, that it's easy to blame legal technology. It's not just CLM, it could be anything.
Something to point at, right?
Yeah, that, hey, this tool just wasn't right. I want to switch. Well, before you switch, look at what you did and make sure you don't fail again.
It's quite keen, like the whole point of this kind of podcast is talk to delegation, but also technology as well.
Yeah.
CLM is a tricky one, right? How do you see the CLM market at the moment?
Crowded and confusing, if I was to narrow it down to a couple of words. But if you really dig, there is something for everyone and there is a difference, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. Because like I saw a job post for one the other day and it said like total addressable market, global.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that's not a TAM, right? So how do you guys think about like the addressable market you focus on?
So we've started to narrow down our sweet spot. And I think the most successful CLM selection, implementation, rollouts, and long-term adoption are in growing companies where there's a need, but also mid-sized to large enterprise. I think smaller organizations need something to manage their contracts, but because of resource and budget constraints, there are smaller, cheaper solutions out there, which are simple enough for them to use if they need. But I think there is a difference between like the enterprise CLMs and the small, simple, more cost-effective CLMs. And we are focusing on a specific set of industries.
Yeah.
And the mid-sized to larger enterprise, global enterprise market.
Did you guys always focus on that piece, or have you kind of grown through the ranks as the technologies develop?
Yes, because we come with, this is in our DNA. I spent 10 years at a CLM company before starting Malbec, and my co-founders and many of my team members, we used to work together.
Okay.
And we spent a lot of time implementing the first generation of CLM back in 2006.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this goes back a long time, implemented for GE Aviation, Honeywell, UTC, a lot of pharma companies. So we always played in that space, but it's complex, right? Their needs are, they have a lot of contracting rules. The integrations are deep because it's not just integrating to a Salesforce or a procurement system. There's pricing and finance systems and compliance systems, lots of different applications that we would integrate with. So when we built Malbec, that was the background, that we knew what the larger enterprises need. And we wanted to focus on the more comprehensive, deep capabilities. But we were challenged because in this generation of CLMs, you cannot have a very technical, custom-coded solution. So we had to make a no-code platform, configurable everything, but be able to handle those comprehensive needs of the larger enterprises.
Makes sense. So do you guys primarily focus on buy side, sell side, or where do you sit in that market?
It's 50-50. A lot of our customers will start on one side and expand to the other. So we have customers that implement it in procurement. And of course, legal is in the middle, and then moved into sales or vice versa. We've seen several customers now go into finance as well.
Okay.
Because financial obligations, invoicing, POs, all touch finance, billing milestones. So we are covering those three departments.
And how have you, because obviously you're a bit of an OG, right? If you've been doing this for such a long time. So have you seen maturity increase with like the buying process? Has it not moved? Like how have you seen contracts over the last kind of couple of decades?
It's split. There's three types of buyers that we see. First are the customers who already had a CLM, the first generation from 10 years, 15 years ago, that are looking to move up to the more modern systems. And those are customers easier to talk to because they've already been there, done that. They know what works, what doesn't. They know the value of CLM. And there's a lot of companies that are looking to move to the next generation of platforms. So that's one.
Yeah.
Then you've got a mid-size or a fast-growing company that have some kind of a repository or tools, but not a true CLM. and they have the budget and the resources, and they know they need some solution, and they use a good consulting partner.
Okay, yeah.
Because all vendors can share best practices. I can tell you how to implement, but it just comes better from an independent third-party vendor that have been there, done that across different systems.
Kind of have that agnostic position, right?
Exactly. And they can tell you what customers have successfully rolled out any CLM, or where they have failed. So that's the next level of maturity. They know they need something, they are resourcing, budgeting, and they're trusting a good partner to help along with the CLM vendor. And then there's the very green field.
Sure.
I need a CLM. I've heard so much about it. I want something, but I don't even know how to convince my stakeholders to budget for it or why we need one.
Mm-hmm.
And that one takes us longer because, of course, we go through
the education system, right?
And they don't have the budget even for a SI or a partner to come in for phase 0 and help them, to go through that process. So sometimes vendors like us, we will do that. Of course, we are trying to sell our CLM product, so we will do that initial consultation for free.
Okay. And how do you see, I've seen this maybe over the last couple of years as well, the relationship between like a consulting partner like Moray and a tech partner. Do you think that's become more ingrained in standardization, do you think?
It is becoming more and more common. Here's where I see tech vendors and partners improving a bit.
Yeah, please.
It is on making sure the customer sees the value in the services that the vendor provides versus a Moray or a SI partner will provide. Because I've often seen RFPs or customers ask the CLM tech vendor, hey, how much to help us implement and migrate my contracts and all. And we have our pricing. And then they will ask our partners or independent consultants that they have a relationship and how much is your pricing? And there's a difference.
For sure.
Right? Now, as a CLM tech vendor, I have some incentives I can build in because I'm trying to sell our solution. Versus a services partner is focused on high value services, and that's where they make their revenue. So, I would say, I hope the market doesn't start to become where the tech vendor is just discounting services to win business at all costs, and then the partners get left, in this like, oh, you're too expensive, I'll just go implement with the vendor.
Yeah.
Because that may work, but I think the combination is ideal.
Yeah, I think, as you say, like Malbec is almost like a workflow automation engine with contracting built on top, and
Correct.
so the opportunity is like endless, right?
Yeah.
Which is, for some clients is great, for some clients it could be scary, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's where consultants add value, right?
Correct.
It's because they can be like, let's put some definition and some rigor around your scope.
Exactly.
For some idea of what you want to achieve. Because like, I'm sure you've seen it as well, where maybe someone else has procured another CLM tool and you guys come in and they're like, we have failed because we had no strategy, right?
No. Yeah. And I'm starting to see a lot of thought leaders post about this, that it's easy to blame legal technology. It's not just CLM. It could be anything.
Something to point at, right?
Yeah. That, hey, this tool just wasn't right. I want to switch. Well, before you switch, look at what you did and make sure you don't fail again. Because there may be something that your process or your, maybe you didn't have the stakeholders' blessings, right? Approvals and the exec management buy-in that, this is what we want. And I want to reach a certain level of maturity by end of the year, let's say. And if you don't drive the organizations toward that, then for an end user, honestly, think about it. What's easier than just opening up a Microsoft Word document and Outlook email?
Yeah, for sure.
That's easy. And you can get a contract out within seconds or maybe not, depending on your process. But long term, when there's audit or you need to report on certain aspects of your contract obligations and all, that's where you will spend a lot of time trying to dig through those signed documents and making sense out of that data.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Where do you think and again, I'll whisper AI, right? But where do you think like kind of the next iteration of contracting is going? Like more self-service, more standardization? Like how do you guys see it?
So one is there's a lot of movements around standardization and helping organizations adopt to best practices rather than this is how I've always done contracting business and my technology partner needs to do it my way. Can that be done? Yeah, but then some of the older products that let you custom code will accommodate those needs. But long term, then it's challenging because maintaining those customs upgrades will fail. The cost of ownership is high. So the first area of change coming, in my opinion, is organizations are going to learn the easy way by guidance from a partner or the hard way by trying and failing, that I better change the way I do things to align with how all of these tools are built based on learnings from customers and past history on best practices. AI is something, there's no podcast or webinar without mentioning it. And I just did a panel yesterday at another event on this. And everyone's intrigued. Interestingly, we are at another level of AI now with generative AI. So there's two concepts. AI has been around for a while, and you drop in a third-party paper and it extracts information for you to help you review faster. That's been around for a while, but now generative AI is the next level of intelligence. And if I was to forecast in, say, 5 years, many companies will be on it, as much as they're all saying right now that, oh, my corporate will never allow it. My data privacy and my sensitive data and my industry regulations will never allow it. But 20 years ago or 15 years ago, cloud was the same thing.
Yeah.
Everyone said, hey, I'll never go to a cloud system.
Leave me on-prem, right?
Yeah, IT would be like, oh, cloud, we're not going to go with you.
You're crazy.
But guess what? Today, there's no choice.
No, it's cloud first, right?
So that's coming. And I would say, rather than just say, no, I'll never adopt or never use it, start planning and preparing for it. That if I have to use this and if I want to use this in 2029 or 2030, here's everything I will need to do for my organization to get there, right? Changing your DPA, putting in clauses that protect you if you ever did this, changing your HR practices, your IT policies, your employment training of what's the right way and responsible way for using generative AI.
Sure. We've got a steering committee now within Moray that could look at how to use ChatGPT and be careful the data you put in, because once you put it in, it's gone. Right? And there's been obviously well-known issues around people putting IP in and then it's in the Zephyr, right?
Correct, exactly. And even technologies are evolving. So that's the other area of change. I mean, everyone is latched on to ChatGPT because they came out big, but there's other LLMs out there that are innovating very fast, and they're also building industry-specific LLMs. There's one for legal, more than one. And they're going to allow tech vendors or customers to set up parameters and toggles and switches that say that when I send you something, you will not use it for any training or any other purposes, which kind of hurts the LLMs because the way they became intelligent is by using everyone's data.
Totally. And that's why I always think when you see like an AI demonstration, it's kind of a perfect scenario. So it's like the perfect data, like it's across multiple knowledge sets, if you will. And then so I think the client, so like in-house, gets a bit of a bad rap or some confusion because they're like, well, I've seen a demo, it looks great, we'll buy it. And then they go, but our data's crap, right? And so it doesn't do what they want it to do, right?
Yeah. I heard something interesting in my Gen AI panel yesterday at another event. Law firms have a lot of data.
Loads of data, right? Yeah.
They have every company. I mean, if you use outside counsel, law firms have all your contracts that they have helped you with and all your litigation. So they have a lot of data across organizations and maybe a lot of organizations in your industry. So what would they do about it? And I don't have an answer. I'm just sharing something I heard interesting. What would they do if they had the opportunity to share that data? Because now you as an organization can use these LLMs to say, look, I trust this law firm and they have data with my contracts as well as my peers in the industry, and I want to compare what are best practices. So it's not enough to just ask generative AI to give you better clauses or red line review guidance, but tell me what other companies in my space, my size, my industry, my geo are doing, so that I can see if my liability or indemnification or termination or any of the provisions are just out of the ordinary. Why is every customer redlining this thing? Maybe something that I'm doing is not standard. So that could become more intelligent if that ever happened. But
hasn't there been like a standardization of DPAs now? Is that like, because obviously we had one NDA.
One NDA, global NDA, DPA is the same thing. That should be standardized because everyone has the same, similar DPAs. There are some differences in audit rights, who can audit who, when, because audits are expensive. So, but overall, all the clauses are the same.
Same stuff,
and when
right?
a new clause is imposed in a specific geography, we all have to update our DPAs to ingest that.
It's as we know, right? It's a tick boxing exercise.
Yeah.
So I sign a lot of NDAs, but like, is that NDA going to litigate? Probably not. Right?
No, it's more of a mental satisfaction
100%.
that, hey, I'm talking to you about my proprietary things and we signed and you will honor it.
It's almost a handshake, right?
Yeah, good faith. If you ever shared, first of all, how will I ever know? How will I ever prove it?
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things that builds a little bit of trust that, look, we have an NDA, don't share my details. Same with DPAs. And I mean, DPA is a little bit more involved because you do have to protect people's data. And there are implications if you don't. The liability, could be uncapped in certain cases.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, DPA, it would be great to have even a standard legal tech SaaS agreement.
Yeah, of course.
Why not? I mean, we're all kind of selling similar solutions in the cloud with similar terms. So have some kind of a baseline.
But we've all seen a enterprise client's SOW and SaaS agreement, right? It's just like War and Peace.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes our bigger customers have given us their MSA.
Yeah, same.
Right. And as much as we prefer to use ours, I mean, we'll have to.
And I think it makes a lot of sense around standardization because like when you get a corporate's SaaS agreement, it's trying to put like a square peg in a circle hole.
Yeah.
Because again, your commercial structure might not match their assumptions. Right. And then when it goes to procurement, they're like, what is this? Right?
Yeah.
Tricky.
Yeah. So, external law firms are also going through an evolution with pricing pressures, billable rates. They're being held more accountable in terms of what customers are expecting. I've seen a lot of project-based billings instead of just hourly. So there's an end goal. If I gave you a litigation case or a contract, then the end goal is, for that contract, I want to do business with that counterparty. Help us get there and you get paid.
Yeah.
It's not just about, hey, I read your liability clause or termination clause, red lines, and here's a 1 hour of charges.
Do you think like the client requirement for CLM has matured, or do you think it's a split? Because you come to these events and it's the same, people have the same issues every time, right?
Same. You're touching on a topic, okay, I'm going to dig into this, and this is a whole nother podcast, RFPs.
Yeah.
Right? So you're asking, has the requirements evolved and have people gotten mature about their RFPs or requirements which go into RFPs? I get, so do you, a lot of RFPs. And I respect the process and we go through the process. We fill out RFPs. But when I read questions that are so general and table stakes, I wonder, are they really doing justice to both sides? They're wasting time. I mean, do you have e-signature integration, right?
Standard table stakes, right?
Yeah, you have a repository. Can I search and report from my contracts? Ideally, yeah, you should ask these questions. But if you're sending your RFPs to a set of CLM vendors that you've already done some pre-work on and research or used a partner that knows, you don't have to ask because those shortlisted 5, 10, 15 vendors, whatever you selected, they have the basics. Otherwise, they shouldn't be in the CLM category. So there's a lot of requirements, dozens and hundreds that we fill out. But the answers are so simple and mundane that now not only did we spend time on answering them, you're scoring and reviewing on stuff that just is wasting time. I'd rather see RFPs go into the reality of what is life after CLM when you go live. That's when the fun begins. Everyone gets you live, you're using stuff.
Yeah.
The real challenge and the differentiators are 3 months later. Procurement team comes in and says, I've got to change my third-party review process, or sales says, hey, I added a bunch of fields in my Salesforce instance, and I need to change the way we do our MSA or the license agreement. I need certain clauses added. Those are where the owner of the system, the legal admin or paralegal or whoever is going to own this application, because now IT doesn't own these, because these are no-code platforms, a business unit.
Yeah. How do you see IT? Do you see them as, like, again, amongst us friends and everyone watching this, like an impediment to process? Do you think they get in the way? Do you think they're an important part of the stakeholder management program? Like, how do you see IT?
IT is involved.
Yeah.
They actually appreciate that these solutions are more self-service by the business, so legal can handle the day-to-day. Because in the old days, IT had to help, and they had no resources or time
to help them.
They had the Oracles and the SAPs and other bigger projects to deal with. So they appreciate these tools. Where they are involved is in the early part of the selection, security of your cloud, SOC 2 compliance, what's your tech stack. They want to go through the checklist and make sure that this vendor is legit and that my business users will not, get screwed down the line, so to speak. Integrations is where they will have a role, especially if we are integrating a cloud application to something you have on-prem. Some systems are still on-prem. In maybe the ERP world, like I'll have an integration to an SAP.
And geographically, right?
Yeah,
like in the UAE and places like that, right?
So while we can do, self-service cloud-to-cloud integration right through the UI without any IT involvement to Salesforce or HubSpot or Dynamics, Slack, OneTrust, all of that. If a customer wants to connect to their Oracle or SAP instance or anything on-prem that is heavily customized and IT-owned, then of course IT is involved. Because they will have to open up a port and help build that bridge, or use a middleware tool where we drop data, they pick it up, and they drop data and we pick it up.
Nice.
Yeah.
What are you trying to get out of this event? Is it just meet people, chat? Like, what are you trying to do?
All of the above. Of course, meeting a lot of our friends in the industry, some folks that I've known for many years, some new faces that I will meet. The roundtables will help us understand what's the current pain point for these folks. Because while we are selling CLM to the CLM buyers, not everyone has CLM as their pain point. Maybe there's compliance issues going on or people issues going on. So I want to hear in those roundtables, what is the biggest pain point in this economy, in the budget constraints. There are some good panels, the sessions that are being presented by, Jonathan and others. Kevin Cohn is speaking from Bright Flag. So seeing their perspective on some of these topics, and wine and dine. I mean, hey, we're Malbec, right? So I hope Colin's got a bottle of Malbec among other wines out here.
No, but I hope you'd be very disappointed. But thanks for taking the time out. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Pleasure. Always good to talk.